Have you ever wished you could look at someone and instantly know what they're thinking? Not in a magical sense, not like you've suddenly become a superhero with psychic powers, but in a real, human, and scientifically proven way. Imagine being able to walk into a room, glance at a person for just a few seconds, and pick up on their mood, their intentions, or even what they're hiding, all without them saying a single word. Sounds impossible, right? But it isn't. The truth is, you already have this ability. Your brain has been wired for it since the day you were born. You just haven't learned how to sharpen it, how to use it consciously, and how to read people with accuracy that feels almost supernatural. And that's exactly what we're going to unlock together today. Because once you understand how to read minds scientifically, your relationships, your confidence, and the way you move through the world will change forever. Let's begin with something fascinating. Thin slicing. Psychologists use this term to describe the brain's ability to make incredibly accurate judgments about people in just a few seconds of observation. Think about the last time you met someone new. Maybe you shook their hand, exchanged a quick hello, and before they even told you much about themselves, you already had a gut feeling, I like this person, or something feels off. That gut feeling wasn't random. It was your subconscious mind picking up on microsignals, the firmness of their handshake, the tone of their voice, the way their eyes moved, their posture. These tiny details, things most of us overlook, send powerful information about what's really going on in a person's head, and science proves it. Researchers have found that people can accurately judge traits like trustworthiness, confidence, and even competence in as little as 7 seconds. 7 seconds. That's all it takes for your brain to start reading another human being. But here's the exciting part. Instead of leaving this process up to your unconscious mind, you can train yourself to notice the signals consciously. You can learn to decode people like an open book. Let's start with the eyes. People often say, the eyes are the windows to the soul. Scientifically, that's not just poetry, it's truth. Eye movement reveals what the brain is doing. When someone looks up and to their right, they're often imagining or constructing something, like making up a story. When they look up and to their left, they're usually recalling a real memory. Looking down can mean reflection, guilt, or deep emotion. Even the speed of blinking matters. Rapid blinking can signal stress or discomfort, while a long, steady gaze might reveal confidence, or sometimes aggression. Imagine you're in a conversation and ask someone a simple question like, "Did you finish that report?" They answer yes, but their eyes dart rapidly, their blink rate shoots up, and they briefly glance down. Do you trust their words? Probably not, because their eyes just betrayed what their mouth tried to cover. Now let's move to the voice. Most people listen only to the words being spoken, but words are just the surface layer. If you want to read someone's mind, you have to hear the music beneath the lyrics. Tone, pitch, and rhythm are psychological gold mines. A sudden rise in pitch? That's often nerves. A pause before answering? That's the brain buying time. Maybe to hide something. Speeding up while speaking usually means excitement or anxiety. Slowing down can indicate sadness, hesitation, or careful thought. Picture this. Your friend says, "I'm fine," but instead of breezy, upbeat tones, their voice is flat, low, and slower than usual. Do you believe their words? Number. The voice is telling the truth even when the words are not. The third key is the body. Our bodies leak secrets constantly, even when our mouths stay silent. Crossed arms? Many assume it's defensiveness, but sometimes it's simply self-soothing, especially in stressful situations. Feet, however, are brutally honest. Someone might smile politely, but if their feet are pointing toward the exit, it means they want to leave. Posture is another giveaway. A tall, open posture signals confidence. A hunched, closed posture signals withdrawal or insecurity. Combine the eyes, the voice, and the body, and suddenly you're not just listening to words, you're listening to the entire human being. And once you see these patterns, it really does feel like you're reading minds. Let me tell you a story. A woman once described walking into a meeting with her boss. He greeted her warmly, smiling, nodding, saying all the right things. But she noticed two tiny details. His smile never reached his eyes, and his foot was tapping rapidly under the table. In that moment, she knew something was wrong. Hours later, she found out he was planning major layoffs. She couldn't have known from his words, but she read the signals. That's the kind of awareness you can develop too. So how do you train this skill? The first step is presence. Most of us are too distracted, staring at our phones, stuck in our own thoughts. When you're not fully present, you miss the subtle cues. But when you truly focus on another person, you notice everything. Their breathing, the tiny flicker of a smile, the way they shift their weight. Presence is your superpower. Second, practice active observation. Choose one detail to notice in each interaction. Maybe today you focus on eyes, tomorrow, voice, the next day, posture. Over time, your brain becomes faster at piecing together the signals until it becomes second nature. Third, trust your instincts. Your subconscious mind is an extraordinary pattern detector. That uneasy feeling you sometimes get, that's your brain screaming, "I've seen signals like this before." Don't dismiss it, explore it. Ask yourself, what did I notice? Was it their tone, their eyes, their hesitation? This reflection helps you decode the language of the mind. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Your brain is equipped with something called mirror neurons. These are specialized brain cells that fire not just when you do something, but when you see someone else doing it. When you see someone smile, your brain activates as if you're smiling too. When you see someone in pain, your brain reacts as if you're in pain. This is why empathy exists. But it's also why you can feel someone's mood without them saying a word. You literally mirror their state internally. Imagine walking into a party. Everyone's laughing, smiling, relaxed. Without even trying, you start to feel uplifted. That's mirror neurons at work. Or picture entering a room where someone just had an argument. The air feels heavy. You don't know what was said, but you feel the tension in your own chest. Again, mirror neurons. When you become aware of this process, you can read emotions instantly. The atmosphere, the energy, the vibe, it's all information your brain is decoding. But there's another level beyond just noticing emotions. It's called theory of mind. This is your ability to put yourself in someone else's perspective and predict their thoughts, intentions, and beliefs. It's not about mind control, it's about understanding motivation. For example, let's say your colleague avoids eye contact during a meeting. Theory of mind asks, why? Are they shy? Do they disagree with what's being said? Are they hiding information? By considering their perspective, you go beyond surface-level signals and into their inner world. This is how great negotiators, therapists, and even FBI profilers operate. They combine body signals with empathy and perspective taking to understand the mind behind the mask. Let's pause and apply this to everyday life. Imagine you're on a first date. You're trying to figure out if the person likes you. Instead of overanalyzing their words, notice this. Do their pupils dilate slightly when they look at you? That's a sign of attraction. Do they lean in closer, mirror your gestures, laugh easily? Those are subconscious signs of connection. Or maybe you're at work, giving a presentation. You glance at the audience. Some are leaning forward, nodding, scribbling notes. They're engaged. But one person sits back, arms crossed, lips tight. They may be skeptical, critical, or simply disengaged. Instead of panicking, you now have insight. You can adjust your tone, ask a question, or invite their opinion to re-engage them. Reading minds isn't about control, it's about connection. When you understand someone's inner world, you can respond authentically, and that's powerful. Think about relationships. How many arguments spiral out of control simply because one person misreads the other? If you can see the unspoken signs, like your partner's eyes glazing over when they say it's fine, you can address the real issue before it explodes. Or think about job interviews. Employers aren't just listening to your words. They're reading your confidence through your posture, your authenticity through your tone, your preparedness through your eyes. But guess what? You can also read them. Are they leaning in with genuine interest or checking their watch? Their signals reveal what they think of you in real time. This skill doesn't just help you understand others, it protects you. Manipulative people often rely on words to deceive, but their bodies and voices will leak the truth. A con artist might say, "Trust me," with a smile, But if their voice trembles and their hands fidget, your radar should beep loudly. You don't have to fall into traps when you learn to read what's unsaid. And here's the most incredible part. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You'll start seeing what others miss. The micro expressions that flash across a face in less than half a second. The sudden drop in pitch when someone lies. The subtle foot shuffle of someone who wants to escape a conversation. It's like upgrading your vision. Suddenly, the world around you is filled with clues, secrets, truths waiting to be seen. And it all starts with slowing down, paying attention, and trusting that your brain already knows how to read people. In fact, let's try a quick experiment. Think of someone you know well. Picture their face when they're happy. Now picture it when they're annoyed. You didn't need them to speak, you could see it. That's your brain retrieving the signals it has cataloged over years of experience. Now imagine sharpening that skill for strangers, colleagues, or even people you just met. That's the power of scientifically reading minds. And once you taste it, you'll never want to go back to the surface level way of seeing people. Now that you've started noticing the signals, the eyes, the voice, the body, it's time to go deeper. Because reading people isn't just about spotting a nervous twitch or a fake smile. It's about uncovering the story behind those signals. Every gesture, every micro expression, every change in tone is a clue to the mind beneath the mask. Let's dive into micro expressions, one of the most powerful tools in mind-reading science. Micro expressions are tiny facial expressions that flash across the face in less than half a second. They happen when someone tries to hide how they really feel. Maybe they're angry but don't want to show it, so they force a smile. But for a fraction of a second, their true emotion leaks out. A flicker of anger, a flash of fear, a spark of disgust. Most people miss it, but once you know what to look for, you can't unsee it. For example, someone says, "I'm so happy for you." But in that instant, you notice a split-second narrowing of the eyes and tightening of the lips. That's envy slipping through the mask. Or imagine you ask your friend if they're upset. They reply, "No, I'm fine." But their eyebrows raise in the middle and their mouth twitches downward for just a heartbeat. That's sadness, whether they admit it or not. Psychologist Paul Ekman, who pioneered the study of micro-expressions, found that these flashes of truth are universal. It doesn't matter where someone is from, what culture they belong to, or what language they speak. Human emotion leaks through the face in the same way across the globe. That means when you master reading micro-expressions, you can understand anyone, anywhere. Let's add another layer, clusters. A single gesture might not mean much. Crossed arms, for instance, could mean defensiveness, or it could just mean someone is cold. But when multiple signals line up together, that's when the truth becomes clear. If someone's arms are crossed, their shoulders are hunched, their legs are pulled in, and their tone is short, that's a cluster of defensiveness. If they're leaning in, nodding, their eyes are wide and their tone is warm, that's a cluster of openness and connection. The trick is to never judge based on one signal alone. Always look for clusters. Let me give you a scenario. You're in a negotiation. The other person says, "We're very interested in your offer." Their words are positive, but their body leans back, their lips tighten, and their feet point toward the door. What do you believe? The cluster tells you the truth. They're not committed. This insight gives you power. You can pause, adjust, or ask questions that bring their real concerns to the surface. Now let's talk about baselines. Everyone has their own natural way of behaving. Some people speak quickly by default. Others cross their arms habitually. If you assume these are always signs of nerves or defensiveness, you'll misread them. That's why the first step in reading someone is to establish their baseline, their normal. Once you know their usual patterns, you can spot deviations. For example, your colleague usually maintains steady eye contact, but today, when you ask about a project, they glance away repeatedly. That deviation from their baseline suggests something's up. Or maybe your friend is always animated and talkative, but suddenly they're unusually quiet. That shift is the signal, not the quiet itself. Great mind readers don't just observe people. They observe patterns, then notice the breaks. Think about detectives in crime shows. They don't panic when someone is nervous. That's normal in an interrogation. They look for the one moment when the person's behavior shifts dramatically. The micro pause, the sudden change in breathing. That's where the truth hides. Here's another fascinating tool, the power of silence. When you're talking to someone and you stop speaking for just a moment longer than usual, most people rush to fill the silence. And in that rush, they often reveal what they're really thinking. Negotiators use this constantly. They'll make an offer, then go silent. The other person squirms, fills the gap, and suddenly exposes their doubts, desires, or hidden priorities. You can use silence as a magnifying glass, amplifying the signals people are trying to suppress. Let me tell you a story that proves this point. A therapist once had a patient who insisted she wasn't angry with her father. She said it over and over again, calmly, but the therapist just nodded and waited in silence. After a few seconds, the woman's eyes darted down, her fists clenched ever so slightly and her lips pressed tight. Finally, she burst out, "Okay, maybe I am angry." That moment of silence allowed the truth to surface. Reading people isn't just about watching, it's about creating space for the unspoken to emerge. Let's move into relationships because this is where mind-reading skills change lives the most. Imagine being able to sense your partner's feelings before they even put them into words. You ask, "Are you okay?" They say yes, but you notice their smile is weak, their shoulders sag, and their tone is flat. Instead of taking yes at face value, you gently probe. "You don't seem okay. Want to talk?" That's connection. That's intimacy. Or think about friendships. Your friend says they're not mad you canceled plans, but you notice their voice is clipped, their arms crossed, and they don't look you in the eye. Now you know their words don't match their emotions. You can apologize sincerely before resentment builds. Reading people prevents misunderstandings before they turn into conflicts. In the workplace, this skill makes you invaluable. Imagine presenting an idea to your team. Half the room nods, but one person tilts their head slightly, narrows their eyes, and taps their pen. Without them saying a word, you know they're skeptical. Instead of ignoring it, you address their concern directly. Suddenly, you've built credibility and trust because you responded to their unspoken signals. Leaders who can read people aren't just effective, they're magnetic. People feel seen, understood, valued. That's the kind of leader others want to follow. And let's not forget protection. Reading signals can keep you safe. Think about walking alone at night. You notice someone approaching. Their stride is sharp, their eyes scan quickly, their jaw is tight. Your gut tightens. That's your subconscious decoding danger cues before your conscious mind even catches up. Listening to those signals could save your life. Or imagine a business deal that seems too good to be true. The other person says all the right words, but their smile is stiff, their hands tremble, and their voice wavers when talking about details. Those are red flags. By trusting what you see and hear beyond words, you avoid falling into traps. But let's dig into something deeper, emotional contagion. Emotions aren't just private, they're contagious. When someone is anxious, their breathing quickens, their body tenses. Without realizing it, your body starts mirroring those signals. That's why you feel uneasy around anxious people. The reverse is true too. Confidence, calmness, joy, these emotions spread. When you read someone's emotional state, you can choose whether to absorb it or counterbalance it. If your friend is panicking, you don't have to spiral with them. You can ground yourself, slow your voice, relax your posture, and transmit calm. Suddenly, their state shifts to match yours. Reading emotions gives you the power to influence emotions. And influence, when used with integrity, is leadership. Let's take this even further. The most advanced level of mind reading is prediction. Not just knowing what someone feels right now, but anticipating what they'll do next. This isn't magic, it's pattern recognition. If your coworker avoids eye contact whenever they disagree, and they're avoiding it right now, you can predict resistance before they speak. If your partner taps their foot when they're restless, and you see it happening at dinner, you can predict they want to leave soon. These small predictions make you seem intuitive, almost psychic, but really you're just connecting dots. And the more dots you collect, the clearer the picture becomes. Here's a powerful exercise to sharpen this skill. Next time you're in public, people watch. Pick someone and try to guess their mood, their personality, even what they might be thinking, just based on signals. Are they relaxed, hurried, stressed, joyful? Then, if possible, see if your guesses hold up when you overhear their conversation or see how they act next. This trains your brain to pick up on patterns quickly and accurately. Another practice is emotional labeling. When you sense an emotion in someone, silently label it in your mind. Anxious, excited, irritated, bored. This strengthens your accuracy over time. Studies show that people who can identify emotions precisely are better at managing relationships and resolving conflicts. But let's be clear, reading people isn't about being judgmental. It's about being curious. If someone looks nervous, don't assume they're lying. They might just be shy. If someone avoids eye contact, don't assume guilt. They might be introverted. Approach signals with curiosity, not accusation. Ask yourself, what else could this mean? That openness keeps you accurate and compassionate. Remember, this skill is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. At first, you'll notice just the obvious signals. Then you'll catch the subtle ones. Eventually, you'll start reading entire conversations beneath the words, seeing the hidden dance of human psychology play out in real time. And once you do, you'll never look at people the same way again. By now, you're beginning to see the world differently. You've learned how to notice the eyes, the voice, the body, micro-expressions, clusters, baselines, silence, and even the hidden power of emotional contagion. But let's push further, because the deeper you go, the more powerful this skill becomes. Reading people is not just about spotting lies or detecting attraction. It's about building bridges into the unseen world of human psychology. Let's explore storytelling, the hidden signal most people overlook. When people tell you a story, listen carefully to what they emphasize, what they skip, and how they frame themselves. Someone who constantly paints themselves as the victim may carry unspoken wounds. Someone who always brags may be covering insecurity. And someone who can laugh at their mistakes often shows resilience and humility. Stories are windows into the mind. You don't just listen to what happened, you listen to how they interpret it. That interpretation reveals their values, fears, and priorities. For example, imagine two co-workers telling you about a tough project. One says, "It was so unfair. Nobody helped me. Everything went wrong." The other says, "It was hard, but I learned a lot and we pulled through." Same situation, two minds revealed. One is focused on blame, the other on growth. When you learn to read the story behind the story, you unlock the map of someone's inner world. Let's shift to lies, because this is one of the biggest reasons people want to learn mind-reading skills. How can you tell if someone is lying? First, remember this. Liars rarely look like the movies. They don't always sweat, fidget, or avoid eye contact. In fact, some liars overcompensate by staring too much, smiling too often, or speaking too smoothly. So how do you detect deception? By spotting inconsistencies. If their words, tone, and body language don't align, that's a red flag. For example, they say, "I'm confident in this plan," but their voice trembles and their shoulders hunch. Or they say, "I've got nothing to hide," but their eyes dart away and their hands cover their mouth briefly. Another powerful method is asking for details. Truthful stories tend to be consistent and rich in sensory detail. Lies, on the other hand, are often vague or overly rehearsed. If you ask what happened next, and they stumble, pause too long, or contradict themselves, that's a clue. And remember the baseline principle. If someone usually speaks with ease but suddenly becomes stiff, rehearsed, and guarded, that shift could signal dishonesty. But here's the key. Don't play judge, play detective. Collect signals like evidence. One clue doesn't prove a lie, but a cluster of them, that's when you trust your instincts. Now let's talk about attraction, because yes, you can read that too. Attraction has its own set of signals. Dilated pupils, subtle mirroring of your movements, leaning closer, smiling more often, playing with hair or adjusting clothing. These signals aren't conscious. They're the body leaking the truth of the heart. Imagine being on a date. The person across from you says, "I had a great time." That's nice, but do their signals match? Do they linger when the date ends, or do they rush to leave? Do their eyes sparkle when they look at you, or do they glance at their phone? Words can be polite. Signals are honest. Attraction is not just in what's said, it's in the thousand silent ways the body says, "I'm drawn to you." Now let's step into leadership again. Great leaders aren't great because they talk the most. They're great because they read the room. They can feel when energy dips, when people are confused, when enthusiasm sparks. They know when to push, when to pause, when to inspire. Imagine you're giving a presentation. You notice people's eyes glazing over. Instead of plowing ahead, you tell a story, raise your tone, or ask a question. Suddenly, the energy shifts back to you. That's not chance. That's mind reading in action. Leaders who read minds aren't manipulative. They're responsive. They listen to what's unsaid and adapt in real time. This is why people describe them as charismatic. It's not magic, it's awareness. And let's not forget empathy, the soul of reading people. When you look at someone and see past their mask, when you sense their pain before they admit it, when you understand their joy without them explaining, it changes how you connect. People don't want perfect listeners. They want people who get them. When you master this skill, you'll hear people say, "You understand me better than anyone else." And it's true because you're listening to more than words. You're listening to hearts. But reading minds also demands responsibility. Because when you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You may notice when someone is lying, even if they don't want you to. You may sense when someone is hurting, even when they're hiding it. You may realize someone is attracted to you, even if they'll never confess it. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Will you use it to manipulate or to connect? The ethical choice is clear. True mastery isn't about exploiting people. It's about understanding them so deeply that you can build trust, solve problems, and create harmony. Remember this, reading people is not about control, it's about compassion. Now let's imagine what your life looks like after practicing this skill. You walk into a meeting and instantly know who's confident, who's doubtful, and who's secretly leading the room. You talk with a friend and sense the sadness they're hiding, so you offer comfort before they even ask. You meet a stranger and instantly know if they're trustworthy simply from their eyes and their tone. You avoid manipulation, strengthen relationships, and carry yourself with a confidence that others feel but can't quite explain. To them, you seem intuitive, almost mystical, but in reality, you're simply tuned in to the science of human behavior. Let's bring this to a close with one final story. A teacher once had a student who always claimed everything was fine. "I'm fine," the student would say, smiling politely. But one day the teacher noticed something. The student's voice was softer, their shoulders slumped, their smile didn't reach their eyes. Instead of accepting, "I'm fine," the teacher leaned in gently and said, "You don't look fine. Do you want to talk?" The student broke down, finally opening up about struggles they had kept hidden for months. That moment changed everything. Not because the teacher was psychic, but because the teacher was present. That's the power you now hold. You don't have to be a mind reader in a fantasy sense. You just have to notice, listen, and connect. So here's your challenge. Starting today, pick one interaction each day where you practice. At the store, at work, at home. Watch the eyes, the voice, the body. Notice the clusters. Trust your gut. Ask yourself, what's really being said here? Over weeks and months, your perception sharpens. And one day you'll realize, you no longer hear just words. You hear the mind beneath the words. Remember this, words can lie, but signals whisper the truth. And the person who can hear those whispers doesn't just read others. They understand the human condition itself. That's the real superpower. If you've made it this far, you already have what it takes. All that's left is practice. Pay attention, be present, connect deeply. And soon you won't just read people, you'll truly see them. And when people feel seen, your relationships, your influence, and your life will transform. So the next time you find yourself wondering what someone is really thinking, remember the answers are already there. Written in their eyes, echoed in their voice, revealed in their body, waiting for you to see. This is how you read anyone's mind in seconds, scientifically, and this is how you unlock the most powerful skill a human can ever master, the ability to understand another soul. If you're ready to continue building this superpower and discovering even more hidden psychology secrets, make sure you subscribe right now, because this is just the beginning of your journey to mastering human behavior and unlocking the deepest layers of connection.